Yo guys, Jim here from DrinkABeerandPlayAGame, and today I continue my look at the Atari Flashback 2. First game up is Yars Revenge. Released in 1982, this was developed and published by Atari and was designed by the legendary Howard Scott Warshaw. It's the best-selling original title for the 2600, and really, as I stated in my Yars Return video, the story goes that the fly-like Yars are trying to defend our planet from the destruction by the Kotiles. The original Yars Revenge is an absolute classic. I friggin' love this game. While the graphics are mostly simple, the blast screen and neutral zones look impressive. The sound effects are fitting, and the game controls damn near perfectly fine. It has that same nice risk and reward system that the game's known for, really a lot of the great Atari 2600 games, and there's not a lot I need to say about this one. If you've never played it, just go out right now, find a copy, you won't regret it.
Yars Revenge will always hold a special place in my heart, because I had a lot of bias against this game when I first saw gameplay footage, and then I played it myself, and hot damn was I impressed. The game is really addicting, and with some simple mechanics like having that neutral zone, and the fact that really your objective is just destroy the barrier and then this enemy. But there's something that is just so fundamentally fun about that, and what really drives it home for me is the soundtrack. It's creepy, it's eerie, it's definitely sci-fi-ish. I don't know what it is about this game. It's not the most intricate, but there's something so fun about it. So it'll always go down as one of the main classics in my eyes.
We move on to the final category of games with the Skill and Action Zone. The first game is 3D Tic Tac Toe. Released in 1987, this early title was developed and published by Atari and was designed by Carol Shaw, one of the first big female game developers, and really she's the one behind River Raid. This is an early game and it shows. I really had no enjoyment coming from it. The controls were kind of confusing, the inputs were laggy, even on a CRT, and I just didn't find any reason to really play this game. It would maybe be fun going against someone else, but even with the rough controls, it would still be a huge turnoff. I don't know, I would suggest staying away from this one. Aquaventure. An unreleased prototype, Aquaventure is an interesting game. It has a copyright year of 1983, which was the same year as the infamous video game crash in North America. The point of the game is you're a scuba diver who is avoiding fish, sharks, and other sea creatures as you try to get to the bottom of the sea in order to find treasure and bring it back up to his mermaid girlfriend. Yeah, that sounds like an Atari game. There's this air meter as well, so the player needs to complete the objective before they suffocate. I actually found myself really liking this game a lot. The sound effects are simple, but they get the job done, and the graphics look pretty decent for a 2600 game. The game controls really well, and I like the gameplay. It's, again, got that risk-reward system. It's simple, but it can get hard really fast. This is one that I really recommend, and it's a shame it never got a full release. This one deserved it. Next up is a title that was originally released as a homebrew game. It was known as Climber 5, but on here, it's Atari Climber. It had an extremely small release on cartridges, so this is both the easiest and cheapest way to experience it. It's unique in a lot of ways. For one, there's a difficulty selection at the home screen. The game takes many cues from games like Donkey Kong. The point of it is to maneuver your character to the top of the screen and to touch a ball. While doing that, you have to avoid these randomly moving walls that will instantly kill the player. On higher difficulties, the ball can randomly move around, and the aggressiveness of the walls can change as well. This is a game that's extremely simple, but can get addicting. It really toes that line between being highly replayable and kinda boring. It really depends on the player. I find myself coming back to it every once in a while, but it just doesn't grab me as a must-play. It's definitely fun and there is a challenge here, and really the random nature of how the game can place balls or the walls can move changes the experience every single time. It's highly replayable. I definitely recommend playing it once and seeing if it's the type of title for you. Next up is Kombat. Originally released in 1977, Kombat was developed and published by Atari and was the 2600's pack-in game until 1982. The game boasts 27 games, which are really just multiple versions of the three main styles of tank, biplane, and jet. When people think of the Atari, they think Kombat. This game was almost synonymous with the VCS. Each of the three vehicles controls a little differently, and the variations to the game modes can help keep it fresh. Obviously, it's a two-player game, but it can be a lot of fun. If you think the tanks are a little bit too slow, play some of the other styles, and vice versa. It really isn't the deepest game out there. There aren't many options for single player, but if you have a friend, you can have a good time with this. Next up is Kombat 2. With a planned release date of 1984, Kombat 2 was yet another victim of the video game crash of 1983. While it never got a full release, this Atari-developed game was sold as 250 cartridges at 2001's Classic Gaming Expo. The Flashback 2 is the first widespread release. The game improves on the classic model in many ways. The battlefields are much more diverse, with forests and a river to cross. You can also have modes where you design your own maps with walls and trees and all kinds of stuff like that. It's actually pretty cool. Different game modes have different configurations, and tanks can take multiple hits to kill. There's also a number of tanks that each player gets, and they can hide in the bases that take multiple hits to kill as well. Kind of think Warlords with the whole destroying the base thing to get to the center. While this game does not have the different vehicles of the original Kombat, this version is a way more dynamic game. The controls are perfectly fine and the sound effects get the job done. With a friend, I would definitely go for this one over the original. Plus, this one plays a little faster, which I enjoy as well. Next game up is Dodgem. Designed by Karl Meninsky, Dodgem was a 1980 release for the 2600 that was developed and published by Atari. It takes many inspirations from Sega's 1979 release called Head On. The point of the game is to navigate a single screen. The player runs around trying to collect all of the dots on the screen without getting hit by the opposing car, whose sole mission is to crash into the player. I'll say this first and foremost, this game is not a pick up and play title. You really need to sit with the game and learn how the computer moves along with the kind of odd control scheme. It can be really twitchy and you don't get a lot of time to get your bearings. I'll be honest, I outright suck at this game, as you can tell by my gameplay footage. But I did get a little better every time I played. If you like Pac-Man on crack, give this game a shot. It can be really frustrating, but you can still have a lot of fun with it. Next game up, Fatal Run. Released in 1989, this Atari-developed game has the distinction of being the only game to come in at a size of 32 kilobytes. It was designed by Steve Aguirre, and he really knew how to work with the Atari hardware, as this game's impressive in many ways. It reminds me a lot of Pole Position, but with bits of Rad Racer thrown in. The point of the game is to leave the base and deliver vaccine to survivors. Other cars are in your path, trying to destroy you, as well as a bunch of road hazards. There is the option to shoot other cars, but you also need to be able to fast enough to make it before your fuel runs out. There are gauges on the sides that show you the state of the engine, tires, armor, and ammo. You get a cutscene between levels that shows how many people you save, which is based on how fast you are, and there's also a password feature. The game itself is okay. I like the idea behind the game and the depth of gameplay with the car upkeep, but overall it's just kind of boring. I would go back to this every once in a while, but it's not one of those shining stars of the Flashback 2. It's at least worth a play to see what the cartridge can do. Next up is Frog Pond. An unreleased prototype, this game was designed back in 1982. It's a remake of Frog Bog, which was made by Mattel, and was later remade for the 2600 as Frogs and Flies, which turned into one of my favorite multiplayer games on the system. This is a children's game, and the point of it is to eat as many insects as possible without missing too many jumps. This game is boring. It's really hard to lose this game, and without any kind of real difficulty, it just loses any luster after about a minute of gameplay. Some of the other game modes make it a little harder, but still, you'll probably never lose. The multiplayer game seems like it's Frogs and Flies, so that's probably a lot more fun, but I didn't get a chance to play it. If you don't have a friend, I can't recommend even trying this game. The last game for today is going to be Hangman. An early release for the 2600, Hangman is... It's Hangman. It was programmed by Alan Miller and was developed and published by Atari. This is the video game version of the classic pen and paper game. It was marketed for first graders through high schoolers, and it's Hangman. The controller is used to select the letters for the words you guess. Come on now, this is just Hangman. It may be fun with another player, but I can't see any reason for someone to play this outside of a curiosity. Seriously, outside of like maybe 2 games worth, you know what you're getting. I don't know, try it if you want, but you're not going to come back to it. And on that note, that wraps up this round of Flashback 2 games. I just want to thank everyone again for watching. The previous videos on this plug and play will be in the links below. Stay tuned for the final 10 games, which will be released soon. Until then, cheers guys.